My guest today is Jay Humflett, the Executive Vice President for Public Sector at Dataminr. Jay, thanks so much for taking the time today and join me.
Jason, thanks so much for having me. I really do appreciate it.
We are talking about this idea of information sharing, this idea that, hey, when a large event happens, how do you make sure you're prepared? How do you make sure you're acting and have good situational awareness? And when we talk about this topic, Jay, we got to start at maybe the beginning, which is technology, the technology that underlies all this important work that state, local, federal agencies can do to prepare for these larger scale events. So let's start with the technology question, artificial intelligence, predictive analytics and the like. What role is this going to play? We know a big one, but let's talk about how and why and the specifics.
Sure thing. So public sector agencies need the ability to receive the earliest indication of a crisis. So our AI technology is crucial to be able to manage this immense amount of data and deliver the right information to the right person at the right time. AI is critical for this just because of the sheer volume of data that we're bringing into the system. And then we have to find the critical events and that breaking news and then deliver that as quickly as possible. So AI is the only way to do this at scale around the world.
Jay, a lot of people hear AI and they go, are you really doing AI right? Like a lot of people believe it's well, that's more predictive analytics, or that's AI light. When people hear AI, maybe help me understand what's that really mean to them. Is it machine learning? Is it AI? Is it a combination?
So it is all the above. It is artificial intelligence, it's machine learning, deep learning, neural networks, on and on and on. We have very robust AI solutions, numerous, thousands of different bespoke algorithms that we're able to employ to go through all of the data and then to generate those alerts in real time. So yes, you have to have AI, but to your point, there are a lot of companies that claim to be AI providers that really aren't. You really need to look under the hood.
All right, and looking under the hood starts with the information and data sets. I think Dataminr uses something to the effect of 250,000 different data sets. So, okay, a lot of data. How do I find that information? The signal to noise challenge is a huge one. Let's talk about that a little bit too.
Absolutely. So again, one of the reasons we have to use AI and we've got such a robust AI platform is that volume of data. So you mentioned the 250,000 data sets. From those, we are bringing in billions of data units every day that are evaluated in real time. So from there, the AI generates the signals. We create the alerts using our multimodal fusion AI algorithms. And at the end of that, now our customers get to tell us which alerts do they care about. We don't want to overload our users, so we have to make sure that we get the signal to noise ratio correct and tuned to their particular mission. So our users can tell us what type of event do they care about, what part of the world do they care about. It literally could be the world, it could be a continent, it could be a country, a city, a geofence. We're very flexible. And then they get to tell us what level of criticality. Is it something you need to go wake the president up for, or do you want to know about every traffic accident that's happening outside of your office? So those levers allow us to configure the product so that our users are just getting the alerts that they care about, and they're getting them at the exact time where we can deliver them.
I think the piece that you said there, among other things, was key, not to overload users. And I think the analysis by paralysis or paralysis by analysis can happen to a lot of organizations. When you talk to your government customers or your state and local customers, do they get overwhelmed by the amount of data? Or are they like, well, what data do you want? I want all of it. Well, what's all of it, right? How do you kind of work through that?
Exactly. So part of what we offer in addition to the product is a dedicated customer success team. And what these individuals will do, number one, they're subject matter experts on the tool, but they will sit down with the users to figure out what the information requirements really are, and then who should be receiving the alerts. And then we work kind of in, hand in glove with the customer to make sure the product is configured so that it's delivering those correct alerts to the right individual. We try to make it as easy to use as possible, but the customer success team is always a vital part of that.
Do a lot of times the customers don't understand really what they want? I mean, because again, the volume of data is so great. And then, well, yeah, that and that and that. And, I could see it just right. the scope creep, if you will, or data creep.
Absolutely. So one of the things that we're able to do is every engagement we have with users, we try to capture as many lessons learned as we can. So we'll create an after action report and we store those. So as we go to new customers or to different sets within a customer base, we're able to pull from those lessons learned so we don't recreate the wheel. And in a lot of cases, we're able to provide that to a customer that's brand new, and we're able to help them from a starting position where it's not a clean sheet. We've already got an 80% solution ready for them at the start.
And I think that 80% solution, a lot of people want 100%, but I think you kind of have to get to a certain point,
Right.
and then you can start building and refining. Go ahead.
So yeah, so our goal is, have that 80% solution as soon as they log into the platform. But after they use it for a little while, we're able to then re-engage, and we'll do that on a regular basis. And we can help them tweak it so that we very rapidly get to that 100% solution after they're exposed to how we do what we do.
When we talk about information and the like, and when you talk about responding to large scale events, a lot of people talk about standards and does the federal government share their standards with the state and local, and do they buy into those standards? And so you have something called, I think, information symmetry, and maybe walk me through what that means and why, if I say it's a car and you say it's a car, we're understanding it's a car, what a car means: 4 wheels, 2 doors, 4 doors, whatever it is.
Exactly right. Yeah. So we have a couple goals in that construct. So we do work with federal, state, and local agencies, not just in the US, but around the world. And part of the complexity there is, to your point, we operate in very different languages. We bring in information from over 100 different languages. So we have to make sure that not just the terms, but colloquialisms that might be in a certain region but not used in another region are covered in our product. And we do an exceptional job of that. And that's one of the ways we do achieve that information symmetry. But the other way is we come back to that information request. We want to make sure that for a particular mission, if an alert is required, it is then pushed out to all of the stakeholders who need to see it.
Do you get into a situation where you have that, if you will, different definitions of information, and then how do you kind of bring people together? Is that where these, if you will, integrated meetings happen? You bring in, the Washington, D.C. folks, the federal folks, the state folks?
Exactly right. So, the pre-planning is so important for these large scale events. So getting all of the different stakeholders in a room early. So if there are disparities between terms or anything like that, we can be part of the process to help work through them. And then that way we can, arrive on, hey, a common theme, a single sheet of music, as you were, to make sure that we're doing it so that everybody understands when we put out an alert, they understand exactly what it means.
I remember post September 11th attacks, there's a big push across the intelligence community and the Homeland Defense community, very similar to that idea of, okay, well, we make sure we're talking about the same thing. And I know there's a lot of data standards work that's been going on, and it's good to see it's been continuing. It wasn't like we're done, let's move on. It's good to see that there's organizations like yourself and others in the public sector that are all coming together to discuss it. And I think that's important because one of the things that you all really focus on is this idea of open source information, and maybe give folks an idea that do you use classified? Do you use unclassified? Is it all open source? How does Dataminr kind of, those 250,000 data sets, as much as you can tell us where they come from?
Sure. No, absolutely. So number one, we operate exclusively in the publicly available information continuum. So all we provide is open source information. We don't do anything in the classified realm, whether it's a data set or our output. So that's number one. Number two, the open source information landscape is very broad and it's changing every day. There are new data sets that are being created. So part of our challenge is how do we stay on top of that? And then identify the data sets that can be performative for our solution and then integrate them in. But the data types, there are the usual suspects: social media, whether it's a global scale or a regional. You've got blogs, you've got deep and dark web, you've got information of things sensors. There are a lot of different types of data sets. And then the other complexity within that is we've talked about the different languages make it very arduous. And then you've got different data formats. We're getting information that is text, or it could be just an image with no text that we have to go and derive information from using our AI algorithms. But we also bring in videos and the information of things, sensor data. So all of that is to say it's highly complex, and that's where the AI really does the work.
And then when you add on top of the open source collection, the idea of social media on your website, I looked at some of the use cases you all put out there regarding, for instance, when tornadoes hit the Midwest or when a flood happens. Some of the first information you're getting is from people taking pictures and posting it on social media, and that's alerting the state, local, FEMA type of first responders too. How much has social media kind of impacted that open source, open information area efforts?
And that's one of the use cases we really get excited about, because we are big believers in AI for good, and in natural disasters, humanitarian assistance missions. We are able, because of the use of social media now, we can see how an event is unfolding in real time and push that to the stakeholders, whether it's FEMA or another agency. So they have that situational awareness, but you can take the extra step. And if somebody issues a cry for help, if somebody is, flooded out, they're on the roof, they need to be rescued. What we then try to do is make sure that we can match that with the first responder, so they immediately know there's an issue and can take action.
It's almost amazing if you think about, okay, what did we do before this ability to push mobile alerts or to push text alerts out? How was, once the phone lines went down, once your copper wires went down, okay, who had walkie-talkies, who had their CB radio, right? I mean, you and I probably remember those days. So what is some of those trends now that we're seeing around open source information? I'm sure the CB is still great, but I'm sure that's not the big trend.
So it's just the proliferation of new data sets. When we started off as a company, before I joined it, we were a single data set company. And as you mentioned, we're now up to 250,000 data sets. We're expecting to be at 500,000 by the end of the year. So just the sheer increase in the number of robust data sets is probably the biggest trend that we see. Over half of the data sets that we use right now didn't exist 5 years ago. And I should be able to say the same thing 5 years from now.
So here's a little bit of a selfish question, Jay. Put up with me for a second here. So as an older person who does not enjoy social media sometimes, like, how do you decide, okay, this is now valuable versus this is no longer valuable, right? So when did Vine stop being valuable, and when did Snapchat or Instagram start being valuable? How do you walk me through that decision process? Because there are so many different platforms that pop up every single day.
Absolutely, yeah. So we have a dedicated data science team, and part of their job is to evaluate emerging data sets as well as existing data sets. And what we test for is we want to make sure that it is performative, that it's providing signal into the AI platform that we can derive alerts from. What we also check for is to make sure that it is not just adding noise. If all it is adding noise, you're going to make the AI's job harder. So we're not going to, integrate that data set. And if a data set, to your point, becomes non-performative, we'll remove it.
And I think that's a key piece here. It's you're not just signing up and being done with it, because a lot of folks would say, okay, well, now 250,000 data sets, now there's 300, now there's 500,000. No, when is too much is too much. So it's interesting that you're constantly looking and evaluating and saying,
right,
X is no good, Y is better, or however you all go about it.
Yeah, it's very rare where we'll have a client say that we're providing too much quality alerting. What we're always trying to do is how do we increase it, and we play at a global scale. So it's not just a U.S. domestic issue. We have to make sure that we are providing these quality alerts around the world, and that's really where we spend a lot of time on the data science side to identify those new emerging data sets.
And a lot of this comes back to you bring up this funny idea of no one complains about too much quality data sets. There's also a huge return on investment. I saw a white paper you all did or a study that was done. Do you want to maybe give us just a little bit of highlights about the ROI piece about this? Because I thought that was interesting too.
Absolutely. So the ROI study was for our private sector clients, but essentially the Pulse product that we have for our corporate risk clients returns, I believe it's 400% ROI in 6 months, if I've got that data correct. And it's just the return on investment because our product, because it is AI based, it's incredibly affordable. But we are providing this valuable real-time alert stream that nobody really can come close to. So we're allowing these corporations to make these real-time decisions much faster. So whether it's for executive protection, asset protection, brand awareness, whatever it may be, they're able to derive that benefit very quickly.
And part of those that return, and I think this is where it gets to our next discussion point about kind of, okay, you have a large scale events, how do you deal with it? What are some of that advice is you also understand the supply chain piece, the potential risks that you're dealing with and potential threats, all those pieces that come from understanding the data and the information. So I'll ask about that advice question. The federal sector, generally speaking, is not new to these big, large scale events, right, but they can get better about it and be smarter about it.
Exactly right. So again, we have this dedicated customer success team that has a just profound level of experience with these large scale events. A lot of our public sector users, they are absolutely fully up to speed. But where we try to play a role is to facilitate getting all of the different agencies together and having them come up with a common, theme in terms of their information requirements. And then we try to make sure that we are going to serve that for all the different stakeholders that are going to be involved in one of those incidents. So we also can rely on lessons learned that we have gleaned from past incidents and then share those with all of the participants.
And that lessons learned piece, I think, is also key because history will tell you how things played out. And right, you can go, okay, well, last time we had this problem on this road. Okay, how do we make sure we don't have that problem again? Or, oh, we didn't pre-position water or tents or whatever it is. You have a kite festival in May in DC, and all of a sudden it's 95 degrees out, but you didn't. 3 of the last 4 years, it's been 90 degrees out. We got to have more water. I think that historical information is really the valuable to a lot of organizations. Is that what you're finding too?
Absolutely. No, the ability for our clients to go back and they can go look back 12 months, but they can find, like you said, the trends and some of the key findings from those prior events and then build upon them for future events.
Jay, we're just about out of time before I let you go. What's the message you want to just leave the audience with, federal and state and local agencies, about not just Dataminr, of course, because they learned a lot about you all, but more about managing and preparing for and being successful with these large scale events? Exactly.
I would think the key theme here is real-time information is going to be a key component. And just because of the sheer volume of open source information, you need AI to help cull through all that and generate the critical alerts and get them delivered. So again, we always pride ourselves on providing that accurate alert to the right individual at the right time. And that's where we continue to work.
All right. Very nice. Let me thank my guest because we're out of time for today. Let me thank my guest. Jay Humflett is the Executive Vice President for Public Sector at Dataminr. Jay, thank you so much for taking the time.
Jason, I really appreciate it. Thanks so much for having me.
I'm Jason Miller, and you've been listening to the discussion using real-time information to prepare for large-scale events, sponsored by Dataminr. For more on this discussion, visit federalnewsnetwork.com and search Dataminr.